30 years ago. That's a long time ago.
Gosh. Well, I was just born. No, I'm just kidding.
I was not in existence yet.
I wasn't even born yet.
I was 9 years from being born.
I was 2.
I was pushing age 2.
I was a preschool student.
I was 5.
I was 6 years old.
I would have been 6.
I was in 1st grade.
I was in the 9th grade.
I was a junior in high school.
Not even born.
Getting ready for kindergarten.
30 years ago, I was being 2 years old.
I was in 3rd grade.
Junior in college.
I was 13 and I was in 7th grade.
What were you doing 30 years ago?
I was a freshman in college.
Getting ready to turn 10.
I was in middle school.
I was 10, which means I was probably in 3rd grade.
Actually, I was in middle school.
I was in 6th grade.
I was in 7th grade. An awkward, self-conscious, uncomfortable middle school student.
I was a junior in high school at Arapahoe High School.
I was a senior in high school.
I was getting ready to graduate from Aurora Central High School.
I was entering my senior year of college.
I was a junior in high school.
Graduating high school.
My freshman at Kansas State University.
My daughter was just born.
I started here the first year we were open.
Coming back to Denver. It's 23.
I was having my family.
So do I have to have my face shown on this?
I was in my first teaching position.
I was working 60 hours a week as a single mom to put a roof over our heads.
Well, I was teaching at Timberline, but I started dealing blackjack.
Heather Ehrenkiel and I were teaching at Les Arnold Alternative High School together.
I was in my 2nd year of teaching.
Just also starting my teaching career.
In the fall of '93, I got hired at TRMS.
Moved over when they built Thunder Ridge. I was part of the planning committee.
30 years ago, we were in the 4th quarter of our first year at Thunder Ridge.
Now, that was back in the time when there were snakes in the building, and they weren't Pam Schmidt snakes, they were wild snakes and wild mice and antelope back behind the parking lot, and it was like little school on the prairie.
And it was wonderful because the excitement was incredible. We actually had our cadre before we had our principal.
We were trying to come up with sort of a concept, a theme for our cadre. Beauty and the Beast had just been released. The cartoon, yes, the animated, yeah, that's a while ago, yes. And I said, why not Beauty and the Beast? And the transformation from the building being under construction to the transformation of the real middle school.
Somehow they put Julie Cyrillic and I on the interview committee for principal. They just didn't know us very well, I guess. Anyway, back then how you did it was the committee would go to their school. We snuck away from the group and we went into the cafeteria. We found the roughest, meanest looking bunch of kids and we sat down and chatted with them. And their answers were perfect. He was just the guy we were looking for.
I was scrambling. It was like, okay, we got to make some decisions.
And then on the way back, this was before nobody had cell phones. But also car phones were pretty unique. Julie and I are sitting in the back, and we're on the phone yelling at our people back here, we found him, and we're talking on a car phone.
Really from the early onset, the staff here was just gung-ho middle school. And they were well versed in what is middle school and curriculum.
Gosh, this building opened with the elite of the elite, it seemed. I mean, everywhere it looked, it was just so many people that were so qualified and so engaged and so passionate about what they were doing.
We opened the building with the theme that Thunder Ridge was the real middle school. And
the enthusiasm and energy among all the staff was just incredible. It was amazing. So that was our first fun day for Thunder Ridge before we even opened.
Hey, what's a memorable moment you have from Thunder Ridge?
Memorable moment.
I've tried to block out most memories.
Same.
So I was at Thunder Ridge for 20 years and saw a lot of changes and had a ball, met some of the best people.
Something we did that was really cool, I thought, is we did a staff musical one year. We did The Sound of Music.
And I came in and I met the whole staff for the first time.
When we were all lined up to do the 30-year celebration. Veteran teachers to new teachers, coming together to celebrate education in the community.
And I got to work with Lynn my first year here, and now I'm getting to work with Cindy, and just really admired both of them.
Probably have been when I almost birthed my child in S1 17 or something. Definitely with the bathroom flooding, it wasn't the only time that room was full of fluids.
My whole experience here has been wonderful. I've been teaching almost 20 years, and this is the longest I've ever been anywhere.
How would you describe Joe? Like,
cerebral.
You said Renaissance man.
Cerebral. Deep thinker, had a lot of interest. He was a master in Taekwondo, I think it was.
I had actually interviewed for this position twice, and finally got it the second time around.
And it was so great to get him to play a little bit because, he took everything so seriously. I mean, we had so much fun.
Yeah?
We played a lot of practical jokes.
On Joe or with Joe?
They played it on me, but I got back.
We were just talking, and I said, I was like, you do remember that I had interviewed for this position before? And he was like, yeah, I do. And I was like, okay. And I said, so what was it about me that, you guys decided not to bring me in? And he was like, well, it just wasn't the right time. And that was a very Joe answer.
But Joe then once put Limburger cheese in my office. They thought it was going to be funny at the beginning of a school year because we got all these new computers to fill my office with boxes.
We used to have some of the best conversations in here. And so Thunder Ridge is always going to be Joe for me.
Just a really kind person with a wicked sense of humor.
Some of my best friends have been made through this time through teaching, and some of them were my kids' teachers.
And my brother, Steve Andrews, he decides he's going to be really cool and get over the PA system, and decides to send me to the principal's office. And he said, Sharon Andrews, please report to the principal's office immediately. Yeah. And I was sitting there with all my parents in a line, and they're like,
The team that I worked on with Schmeiser, Larshevik, Ferreira, there are so many moments in that I can't even repeat because I'll blush too much or scream.
Far and away, standout is our fantastic special education team.
And it was the middle of the summer, and I spent my whole day setting up my classroom, and I brought my kids with me. All of a sudden the boys are like laughing hysterically and giggling, and I hear like some of like the locker, and I was like, oh my gosh, what are they doing? And I go in the hall, and the boys are just rolling around laughing, and Eliza's locked in the locker. And so my 2-year-old is locked in there, and it's almost 4 o'clock, and there was nobody in the building. Finally, I was just like, Deanna, my daughter's locked in the locker. And she just like booked it. Like she didn't even say anything to me until like she was halfway to the stairs, and she's like, I'll see if someone's here. And she ran through the building and out into the parking lot, and she caught Angie Zahner in the parking lot, and Angie came in and locked her.
Making Chris Tonelli's retirement video, and then making the retirement video for, is it Julie, Lisa, Lynn, and Kathy last year.
I've had so many different roles here as a para-educator to then being a student teacher. I got to fill in 6th grade math, and then from 6th grade math, I got very lucky again. There was an ILC teacher position open. Was an ILC teacher for 3 years. Then was blessed once again with a 7th grade opening in language arts. Then was blessed once again with an opening in 8th grade.
What's your memorable?
All of your memories are my memories. And
the moment where I knew we were getting somewhere and where those relationships were building is I came into that meeting virtually one day, everybody's cameras were off. I said, can everybody please turn on their cameras and join me? And when the cameras turned on, every single person had a sock puppet. And laughter followed after that, and that was the moment where I knew. I said, okay, we're making these relationships and we're becoming a family.
Our sense of humor, I think, is what helps us maintain sanity. But for years, whenever a teacher wanted to come and talk about a student, they would never pass the threshold of our door. Do you remember that? They would stand on the outside and go, "Hi, I'd like to talk to you about so-and-so," but they would not cross the line. I was like, well,
danger
come on.
zone.
Yeah, or like there was some kind of aura that if you came into this room that you would be forever cursed. Yeah,
We did have a biter.
Yeah.
Nearly bit someone's finger off.
My memories of Thunder Ridge started before I worked here because Zoe was a student here. And when she was making the transition from 5th grade to 6th grade, I was losing my mind like it was the end of her childhood. And so I went to work on the day that I dropped her off at 6th grade. And I'm just crying. And I'm teaching with a bunch of wonderful people who all used to work here. They know Zoe and they're wanting to know what is wrong with her and why I'm so distraught. And I'm like, well, she's going to 6th grade and she's gonna, you know, it's gonna be awful and kids are gonna bully her and she's gonna be sad all the time and it's just, middle school is so hard. And Catrice Wheeler asked me who her teachers were and I'm like sniffing and I'm like, it's Carol Marin and like Archie Farron and somebody named Allison Dorothy and all the women that I'm working with are like, oh, she's gonna be just fine. Like it's gonna be okay.
All I had to do was give them the sign and point, and they would kill for me. Mice, but they still killed for me.
Meet and greet with the staff, and that was a very memorable moment for me because during that time, everyone kept explaining how we're all family and they were so warm and so welcoming. And everyone, it was just, even though we had on our masks, I mean, you could just see everyone was smiling with their eyes and it was just so warm. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm just going to love being a part of this family.
So I picked up the trash and I walked over to the trash can, and right when I was about to throw it in, I saw that Angie was walking out of the main office. And I thought, you know, I bet it's gonna look a whole lot better if my boss thinks that I care about the school, even though I'm clearly already caring about it because I'm willing to pick it up. But what I'm not entirely proud of is that I turned around and I put the piece of trash right back where it was, and I walked about halfway down the stairs to time it out, so as soon as Angie rounded the corner, I was walking up the stairs and I was like, hey, Angie, oh, and then I saw a piece of trash, bent down and picked it up and just was like, hey, how's your day going? So I would just throw it away while she saw me throwing it away.
I started in like the heart of COVID, so I think the most unique thing was definitely starting like remote and not actually meeting the students for a full half of the year.
But what I remember so much about last year is when we got to the end of last year and everybody was vaccinated and we started kind of, bringing everybody back to school. I remember the very, very last day of school was the first time I had worked here for a full year, and it was the first time we were all together, and it was just at our end of school year, last day barbecue, and no one had masks on because we were all eating, and it was the first time I saw all these people's faces. And just the feeling in the room was great. It started to feel like normal again, and it was just great to see people smile.
You know, Thunder Ridge is famous for its snakes.
My first year I had students in Pam Schmidt's class. I remember I got one foot in the door and just kind of froze and stopped breathing. My heart was racing and I was like, what the heck? And then I noticed all her lovely pets in there. I am truly phobic of snakes. I can now breathe when I'm at her doorway. I don't go in her room, but now I at least do inhale and exhale while standing in her doorway.
And one morning I came down to visit Pam, who became a lifelong friend, and there was a substitute who had shown up for the day, and the snakes were being exercised, and she had a really, really big yellow python, and the poor man was standing in the corner and he was just trying to stay out of the way, and those of us who worked at Thunder Ridge got pretty immune to the snake. So I remember thinking, okay, I'm not scared walking down this hall and I must be a full-timer.
So my favorite thing about Thunder Ridge right now is Dave Torfin's reaction to Pam Schmidt's room.
I have to say this, but Pam Schmidt, I can't believe some of the things I did with snakes because of her. Like feeding them pinkies because I trusted her.
My first year teaching, that morning I was walking my dog and I sprained my ankle. I was like, where should I go? I should go to Thunder Ridge. So I drove all the way with my sprained ankle to school to go to the nurse and have like Joni look at my ankle and she was like, yeah, you need to go to urgent care. Classic like Thunderidge, like, where do you go? Like, well, there's lots of adults at Thunderidge, someone will help me.
So when I first transitioned from being a science teacher into being a technology teacher, and got to work with fabulous Kim Jones, and we got those silver Chromebook cards, and they had to be wired. And we sort of like set the record for how quickly we got all the computers ready and got the cart set up. And it felt so amazing to have the entire staff come out. Everybody volunteered their time, and I mean, people were laughing and, you know, doing this awful work, and it was just this amazing day.
Like the 8th grade teachers in the hallway during plan after school talking and stuff about anything that goes on the day, the stories that we have. That just always reminds me of Thunderidge.
Well, when I first started at Thunderidge, they actually would assign us a mentor teacher, and mine was Lori Mabel. So of course, everyone that knows her would understand what kind of impact she can make on a person and a career. And so she was my assigned mentor, and of course there were so many others that just were so willing to share and teach, and I could learn from, but she was my assigned mentor.
Probably my biggest memory for Thunderidge is the first day I was here. So I came to a science training was the first thing I was welcomed to, and I just remember how friendly everyone was because I came from a district where we did not talk to each other or plan together.
Oh, wow.
So right away, day one felt like family.
When I think of Thunderidge, I think of my brother. I think a lot of people do. So Charles Fritz, and that's who brought me to Thunderidge.
When I think of Thunderidge, I think of being at the Smoky Hill Library and receiving a phone call from Charles Fritz that I was offered the 6th grade language arts position.
For Charles, he was really he wanted to stay with middle schoolers because he felt like he could save middle schoolers, you know, like it wasn't too late, you know, for them to turn around.
The best person I really have worked with is Charles Fritz, and you know, just an amazing person, and he taught me so much, and he encouraged me in everything I did and believed in me, and just, you know, he's just definitely a huge missing piece in our building.
I went to UNC, graduated with my bachelor's at 55. Charles Fritz hired me as the second SED teacher, and it forever changed the direction of my life.
He was a huge force in my life and has changed it forever, and for that I'm forever grateful.
Thunderball. Before we played volleyball, we played basketball, and it was for blood. Steve Andrews, you know what I mean. I remember Charles Fritz's first Thunderball day. He came over and whispered to me, he's like, so when do you start letting the kids win? I'm like, don't you dare tell Steve Andrews you just said that. They do not win, not at Thunderidge.
There's also been some loss that we've experienced too. And so when I think about that, I think of our dear friend Charles Fritz. And there are some sayings that stick with me that I use to this very day. One, we get to do this. I mean, that is his motto. We get to do this every single day. And how lucky are we that we get to impact student lives?
With the we get to do this, it wasn't like we have to get up and go to work. You know, it's like, no, we get to get up and go to work. We get to teach children. We get a chance to do this. Although he's no longer with us, he's the main reason why I stay here. I feel like his spirit is here and runs through the building and everyone who's worked with him. So I feel like I work hard to instill his beliefs in our students and even the staff. And so that's why I stayed. His daughter went here, and my nephew goes here. His son, it's like he says, I've waited my whole life to go to Thunderidge. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, that means I have to stay. So
hang in there. It's the hardest job you've ever done, and I did not realize, I've told so many people, I did not realize how hard this job was until I retired from it.
And I taught almost 40 years. So I did a lot of different things, and I loved it. every minute, and from the moment I was retired, I loved being retired.
My advice for retirement is do it sooner than later.
What you do is so incredibly important, and you have to dig deep and find that why, even on the baddest days, and you have to lean on each other during those times.
It's also going to be the best building that I've been in.
As a teacher, you are an actor and you're a comedian, and just like Bill Nye the Science Guy, I recommend that you have fun.
What do you think makes it a better building? Or
the people. I have never met a group of people that enjoy being around each other as much.
And that's what I think is really important, is you gotta have fun in your job, but you've gotta take care of yourself, and family comes first too.
And if you can get your students to buy into the education by seeing them in the materials that you present, so they can envision themselves as a part of their education, that would be my highest advice for you.
I would challenge everybody now in this school and in any school to take a step back and be reminded about how important this calling is. The most important thing in the world as far as I'm concerned.
As a teacher, you have an opportunity to give a child an experience in something that they maybe don't get anyplace else in their life. You can give them an experience in caring, in trust, and respect. And he said the amazing thing, the incredible thing about being human is you can't unexperience anything. And you never know where what you gave that child might come out again.
I think there's a cohesiveness, and there's just this unity and this devotion to doing what's best for the students.
But most of all, I remember the forever friends sewn by the fabric of TRMS. I am so blessed to have all of them a part of my life's tapestry. Thank you, TRMS, for 29 years.
Do you remember all of the times that we've been there for each other, through the good times and the bad, the weddings and the funerals, the new babies and the illnesses and injuries? Do you remember when the staff members, sometimes they left, but then they came back again because they wanted to be back in the family? Or the ones who haven't come back, but they still remained our dear, dear friends? What else do you remember about TRMS, the real middle school?